Oh, let's go, man. It's going to be a great show. It's just me right here. I'm your host, John Roots, and we're going to bring in my co-host it's out here beaching, out here in Newport Beach in California, while I'm just dealing. Are you doing the Oh, no,
Hitting
you're
you
not.
with the Nancy Pelosi.
Brian Farnsworth, how's it going?
Oh, going great, John. Yeah, out here, vacationing in Newport Beach, but I wouldn't miss Breakaway for the world. So, of course, I had to come in remote.
All right, this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to bring in Daily Wire sports reporter Joe Morgan. We got to go off on the NBA because the MVP race is getting wild. I actually put like a little bit of money down on Ja Morant when he was plus 900 a little over a week ago, which I thought was kind of a steal. Obviously, you got some other guys like Jokic and Embiid that are up near the top of that race. We're going to talk about why the Lakers are just imploding. Is that just injuries, or are they really that bad? The same thing probably for the Warriors right now, too. Kyler Murray seems like he's just airing his grievances, and he wants everybody to know about his relationship status with the Cardinals. He's not going to do it behind closed doors. He wants social media to know. MLB is officially locked out. We're going to break that down a little bit more and get a little bit into kind of the Ukraine responses from different teams, leagues, athletes, and so much more. But here, upon further ado, we're going to bring in Daily Wire sports reporter Joe Morgan. I think he's ready right now. Joe, how's it going?
Good, John. What's going on? Can you hear me?
You look like a game show host right now, Joe. You're looking fly.
Fresh
That's
to
the
death.
idea. Yeah, I like more of the kind of Dan Patrick, Ron Burgundy type look. So, yeah, that's the goal.
Well, how now, brown cow to you too. Let's dive right into the NBA. Obviously, there were some big moves made. Obviously, the Sixers and the Nets, they were trying to bolster their rosters. At first, I thought the Sixers got a little bit fleeced, especially giving up a lot of those draft picks. But you got that connection between James Harden and Joel Embiid that looks pretty nice right now.
Yeah, it does. Look, and the entire situation I find fascinating. There's so many layers and facets to this trade, quite frankly. But at the end of the day, James Harden is an upgrade, okay? And especially when Ben Simmons wasn't playing, this was going to be a plus for Philadelphia. Now, if they're able to pay him down the line, one of the most lucrative contracts in the history of the NBA is a completely different conversation. But they're trying to win an NBA championship, and to add a guy of James Harden's caliber to that roster clearly puts them at the top of the East, especially with the way Joel Embiid is playing. You've seen him talk about it now, about the spacing. He's never been that open. I think that is kind of a little bit of a shot, if you will, at Simmons. But that's the way it's going to be moving forward. And they're getting to the free throw line like crazy. And so what I'm curious to see is I do think in the regular season this is going to be great. When you add a guy like Harden, you're going to win a lot of ball games. There's no doubt. Come postseason time, I'm curious to see what this looks like because let's be honest, Harden hasn't exactly got the job done come playoff time.
Exactly.
And that's what matters. At this point, that's what matters. Regular season basketball is what it is, okay? The first 60 games are, I don't know if everybody's watching. I might be, but not everybody is. We're now kind of getting down to gut check time. And once we get to the playoffs, I want to see if he's able to go to the next level because I haven't seen that yet in his career. So I think it ended up working out for Philadelphia, but I think it's also going to work out for Brooklyn as well. I really like what they did. So I think both teams, it's almost like a win-win.
Yeah, because on the other side of things, too, I mean, Brooklyn, you have Ben Simmons that's out right now because he's got back soreness. So we're still waiting to see what that's going to look like over there. But from right now, or right when those deals dropped, who do you think won that trade?
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, I actually thought Brooklyn did. I think Ben Simmons, so I guess there's a couple of things here. I'm curious to see, obviously, the way that he comes out. We haven't seen him play in a while. Is he scared to play basketball? I don't know the answer to that, right? So there are a lot of things that go into this. But let's say he plays at the level that we've seen him play before, which he's a phenomenal defender. He's one of the best defenders in the NBA. He's now in a position where he doesn't need to shoot the basketball, which was the key issue in Philadelphia, is that they needed him to be a second scorer. If you have Durant when healthy, we're going to have him healthy, and Kyrie Irving, who is, let's hope, is able to play, moving forward in home games, you now kind of put Simmons in a situation where he can do what he does best, which is defend and distribute the basketball. And so I do think for Brooklyn, it's a great situation, because I think Harden also didn't want to be there. I mean, we saw those last couple of games where it was clear that Harden was kind of checking out. So if you're able to trade those two out, I think Brooklyn, when I first saw it, won. But if Harden is going to play the way that we have seen him play in Houston and even last year in Brooklyn, Philadelphia also, in my opinion, wins this trade. So I do think for both sides, they should be happy. Daryl Morey got his guy. Simmons was able to move on with his career and hopefully start fresh. I think it's great for the NBA, quite frankly, because I think the Eastern Conference, the postseason that's coming up, is about ready to be absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's going to be amazing. And before we get into some Kyrie Irving MVP race and some of these title contenders, Brian, I know we've talked about quite a bit how good Ben Simmons has been as a defender. And I think so often it's just out of sight, out of mind. And that's something I think you try to remind people, Brian, quite a bit.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I agree with Joe here. I think it's a win-win for both teams. Ben Simmons, he has been, somebody who's gotten significant consideration for Defensive Player of the Year in years past. This really works out for Brooklyn because you already had, Kyrie and Kevin Durant, who come playoff time are going to be very ball dominant. James Harden, while they were great, I mean, they only ever played 16 games together and went 13-3 in that stretch. Now you're going to be able to get a player who can focus more on exactly what his strengths are, as Joe said, distributing the ball, playing rock solid defense. And I actually think it raises the Nets' chances of getting past a team like Milwaukee, who, while they were beaten up, last year in the playoffs, Milwaukee stopped them because of the fact that Milwaukee, Giannis Antetokounmpo, of course, could kind of just score as many points as they wanted to on the Nets. This raises them, and it also raises the ceiling for the 76ers. Like we said, James Harden and Embiid, that fit is going fantastically well. Their pick and roll game is already elite.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, this is one thing I was thinking of. I can't remember the last time James Harden was on a team that had a defense as good as this. You talk about Matisse Thybulle, Joel Embiid, of course, and, just a couple of the other pieces there. They can kind of make up for the James Harden lacking of defensive skills.
And then I want to get your take on this, Joe. Then you brought up. Go ahead, Joe.
Yep.
Yeah, go for it.
I think the ceiling is the good point with Brooklyn. So, when you look at the Eastern Conference right now, it's probably Miami, Milwaukee, Philly, right? Mm-hmm. But if Brooklyn gets healthy, their ceiling is higher than anybody else's. Mm-hmm. Kevin Durant is the best player in the NBA. That's it. That's all there is to it. And if he is able to get healthy, and Kyrie, who has looked great at times, even when he's playing part-time, that's still an absolutely loaded roster, not to mention the shooters they have around him. When it comes to the NBA, for me, I generally look at ceiling. Like, once we get to postseason time, what roster can go to the next level? And I think Brooklyn is the roster that can go to the next level. Now, you can talk to me about Milwaukee, because I still think ultimately Milwaukee, if I was a gambling man, I would say that they have the best shot still in the East. But with that ceiling that Brooklyn has, it's scary, man.
And then let's talk about Kyrie Irving then, because it seems like the biggest opponent for the Nets and Kyrie Irving is the city of New York. I mean, they lifted their mask mandates, they lifted their vaccine mandates, and then you had Eric Adams say, like, I don't know, it just seems like there's some dumb rules that, guys from different teams can come in here and play. But, I think it would send the wrong message if we just let one player, be able to stay employed and play at home while other people are not able to work themselves. Like, Eric, it doesn't make sense, brother. Like, what do you think's going to happen here, Joe?
Wow. Okay, so I don't know. I thought 2 days ago we were going to get full Kyrie. I really did. Right? I mean, I think we were all leaning that way. I was like, oh my goodness, Kyrie's going to win. I can't believe he's going to end up winning this whole thing. And now I'm not so sure. I think ultimately it'll work out. I do. I don't know what exactly that looks like. I think as we as a society, you have to look at this from a non-sports perspective, quite frankly. As we as a society are moving our way out of this, and cities around the country are getting rid of their mask mandates. We're getting rid of, I believe, don't quote, vaccine mandates at some level, right?
Yeah.
We at some point, we're going to have to look at the ridiculousness of the situation. And the fact that Adams and Adam Silver have both said that the rules in New York make no sense. What are we doing here? So it just, yes, it doesn't make sense. So do something about it. The fact that you will allow visiting players to come in and they're unvaccinated, which apparently is the worst thing in the world from what I'm seeing from the rules, but you won't let Kyrie play, just confuses me. I mean, it doesn't even confuse me. It's just flat nonsensical. And I'm sure the NBA wants Kyrie to be able to play because obviously come playoff time, this is going to be an issue when you're having either 3 or 4 home games in a 2.5 week stretch.
Well, that's why this is all politics, Joe. Like comes into, that's why you say this is not a sports conversation, it's a political conversation now, because they don't want to admit they're wrong. And because I know they know the crap storm that would happen is if you see someone like Kyrie Irving that's held the line, that's had a courageous stand and said, this is not just about me. And that's what I think so often you're seeing this phrased as like, oh, we can't just give one exemption to one guy that's like just some basketball player that's an elitist. Like, no, just like this shouldn't have been happening in New York. Whatever, right. Like the last 2 years, think what you want about it. I thought it was an absolute joke, but here they just don't want to admit wrong. They don't want to be held accountable. You're lifting these mandates, so just let the dude play. And I feel like that would only make sense, but our world doesn't make sense, Joe.
No, our world doesn't make any sense. And unfortunately, I think that a lot of things that we do, as you said, are due to politics and the way that people on both sides of the aisle, I think we all want to win to the point where we don't want to admit that we've made a mistake. And it's not even admitting a mistake. I mean, that's the problem. You're allowing unvaccinated players to come and play at the Garden and at Barclays Center. That it just across the board doesn't make sense. But all it is that New York City obviously made that rule. I guess they don't really want to change it. We need them to, okay? A really good Kyrie Irving in the playoffs. Say what you want about Kyrie. He says things that I don't always agree with. He
is a crazy person in a lot of ways.
Correct. But he is a wizard with the basketball. And come playoff time, that's something I want to see on a nightly basis. And I'm hoping we get there. I believe we will. But then again, I haven't had a lot of things that I've hoped and had faith in over the last year haven't really come true. So we'll see. Something
that's a struggle to watch on a nightly basis is the LA Lakers. That's been tough. I know you covered the Lakers and the Clippers for the Sporting News. What in the world is going on here? Because it sounds like LeBron should be probably more worried about winning ball games than winning arguments with fans in the stands.
I mean, come on. The whole Lakers thing from the very beginning of this offseason with the Russell Westbrook signing didn't make any sense. I never understood what people were talking about when they were talking about a championship run with the Lakers. And look, I understand, obviously, I can say this now, but I was saying this at the beginning. I want to make that clear. If you have watched Westbrook play throughout his career, phenomenal player. Like when we watched him on Washington, he is a joy to watch. I don't know anybody that plays harder than him. There are not too many people that care more about the game and winning than he does, but it hasn't necessarily translated to, quote, winning basketball. And I did think that the fit with LeBron was questionable just because of the lack of shooting that Westbrook brings to the table and the amount of shots that he does take. So the fit never made sense. And the Lakers gave up a lot to get him a lot. I mean, we can't say this for sure, but LeBron James obviously had a lot to do with them getting Westbrook. They're not making decisions without him. That's just a fact. And everything that happened at the trade deadline, right, around the All-Star break with some of the comments he made, I thought were pretty interesting. In him talking about Cleveland in a very positive light, talking about Sam Presti of Oklahoma City in a positive light. Like everything that LeBron does is very calculated. And clearly he doesn't believe this team can win a championship. They cannot. I believe they've lost 10 of 13. I'd have to double check that, but they're no good. The Lakers are not a good basketball team.
They're not going to make the playoffs, probably.
They'll probably be in that play-in game. Just because if you look, if you look at the actual standings, I think they're going to be in the play-in game, which is crazy because if you actually go back with some of the stuff LeBron James has said about the play-in tournament is fascinating as well.
Yes, unearth that. We have the receipts.
It's not a good basketball team. I think the bigger question is what is going to happen next year. How do they improve this roster with the amount of money that they have committed? I think it's going to be really difficult for Rob Pelinka and the rest of the Lakers brass to improve this roster. And then the question becomes is, what does LeBron do with his future? Which, no matter what we say and how old he gets, is the number one conversation in the NBA. He's still LeBron James. And then you have the whole Bronny James situation with the son, which is fascinating.
Great marketing.
As well.
But too, it seems like you got a lot of guys that are closer.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think that's why he's a good businessman in a lot of ways. He really is. He got that conversation just focused on him. He rose the stock of Bronny James like we covered on a previous podcast. But Brian, it seems like LeBron, he just wants to be known as not only a Hall of Fame player, but a Hall of Fame GM. And it seems like he's really dropped the ball.
Yeah, I mean, LeBron James, really the only person he has to blame for this roster problem is LeBron James. It was only last September that Carmelo Anthony literally said, "You, the GM." The roster sucks because LeBron does what he does in every situation he's in. He finds guys to come in, convinces the team to bring them on, and then when he decides that the roster sucks now and can't win any more championships, he bails and leaves them in a horrible spot, which is why I actually believe, even with only 1 year left on his contract, I don't think that LeBron will be a Laker next season because you can't get rid of Russell Westbrook and bring in another piece to turn them into a championship contender. Davis should be healthy next season, but at this point, a healthy Davis and LeBron, I don't know if they're championship contenders anymore. And so while you might not want to hear this, John, I've actually been putting a lot of thought into where could I see LeBron? Oh, and also the weird thing is he doesn't have a no trade clause in his contract. Yes. So technically, Pelinka could just move it. He wouldn't do that, though. I mean, let's be honest. But if Pelinka and Bob Myers were to get on the phone call and Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga trade maybe with some other pieces, I don't know who says no to that deal.
No.
Because LeBron has loved playing with Steph in the All-Star games. I think they're friends now. And if the Lakers could start to rebuild around a future superstar like Kuminga, I think they would do it.
Dude, I would call Antifa and I'd say we are heading to the Warriors arena and we're burning it to the ground. No way. I mean, there's too many. We got Kuminga as a steal in the draft. I remember watching him with the G League Ignite when he was playing with Jalen Green. The guy's an absolute beast. There's no way that he should have dropped that far in the draft. And we got some great pieces with the Warriors. And I think once the Warriors get healthy, obviously call me a homer all you want, whatever. I worked for the team too. I grew up watching the team. I just don't feel like you give up assets like that to bring someone like LeBron in. I think it would be a horrible fit with the Warriors.
And I just think the interesting thing when it comes to LeBron, and I do think that the Bronny situation actually plays into this quite significantly, but the Lakers are known as a superstar franchise that treats their superstars right. They have throughout their career, throughout their organization history. They did it with Kobe Bryant. They're not going to trade LeBron unless it was something that he demanded, but it would be best for the organization to try to get something back for him, because I don't think he's going to retire as a Laker. I could be wrong. You just hear the statements that he's made, and it doesn't appear that seems to be the case, because then you add in everything with his son and his goal of playing with him. I mean, I think some of those comments about Sam Presti were because Presti has so many picks. Yeah. And then at the same time, he's wearing the T-shirt with the Rams about, screw them picks or whatever. So none of it actually makes any sense, except the fact that Presti has a ton of picks that might be able to draft Bronny. So it's just, and look, I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on LeBron. I personally believe that he is the second greatest basketball player of all time.
I would say I'm with you on that one, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think there's an argument, you could make an argument that his career is better than Michael's. I mean, that's a totally different conversation. I know people don't like when I say that, but I think you could make the argument. I just think this year has been a disaster as far as who he has decided to bring in and play with, and it hasn't worked out. And right now the Lakers are irrelevant. And frankly, it's all down to the Eastern Conference. I think the Eastern Conference is way more interesting. In the West, it's just basically Phoenix and Golden State. You can talk about Memphis if you want. I don't think Memphis has what it takes. I think Denver, if they're able to get back Jamal Murray and Porter Jr., maybe you can make a run. It's hard for me to believe that those guys are going to be able to come back. But then you look at the Eastern Conference, I think there's 4 or 5 teams that can get out of that. It's going to be a great playoffs. I cannot wait. I love the NBA. You guys are going to get me all excited. It's like my favorite sport. So.
No, that's what I think too. There's times like obviously we got an audience here that is following a lot of Turning Point USA, and also like at Daily Wire, there's a lot of people that are into politics, and sometimes they just get so ingrained in this. Like, I hate what the NBA has done. It's like we could talk about that till we're blue in the face, but there's times where it's just like you can enjoy Bron's skill set. And yes. Really enjoy that and remember him as one of the greatest athletes of all time. His politics, we hate him. But in general, like, watch him, watch Ja Morant, watch Steph Curry. Like, don't miss out on some of these incredible players, Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic. Like, some of these guys, like, just take some time, sit on your couch, watch a game or two. You don't have to buy tickets to games and spend all this money on season tickets. Like, just enjoy the athleticism. But the question I have for you, Joe, is LeBron is so worried about legacy all the time. But what is he going to be remembered as? Is he going to be remembered as a Miami Heat? I don't think so. Is he going to be remembered as an LA Laker? I don't think so. He's going to get remembered as a Cleveland Cavalier. And I feel like once people look back at his career, it's going to say, what did he do in Cleveland? And then you just got these other stops here. He's obviously found a lot of success and teamed up with some big people, but he's thinking about legacy and who is he?
LeBron James' legacy is the fact that he really kicked off the player empowerment movement. In his move to Miami, he changed the NBA. Now, you can make the argument that it wasn't best for the game. I actually think it was. I think it's made it very interesting. And now maybe we've gone too far the other way. I would understand that. But I think James changed the league in that, you know, as far as bouncing around and going to other teams and putting pressure on owners and general managers to provide you with enough talent in order to win, or I'm going to leave. I think that's the legacy. And then secondly, it's what he did in 2016 in Cleveland. That block on Iguodala, in my opinion, is the most clutch basketball play I've ever watched. Yes, sorry. It is the most clutch basketball play I have ever seen. And sure, there's a lot of great plays, but the way he chased it, everybody forgets, nobody hit in the last 3.5 to 4 minutes of Game 7. Nobody could hit a shot. Everybody was dead. Iguodala makes that layup. I think that game is over. So I think I will remember him for 2016, bringing a championship to Cleveland. I love the fact that he returned. Sure, he killed him when he left for Miami, but he came back. I agree with you. Just real quick on your point before, it's okay to watch sports. Okay, like, it is a wonderful way to get away from it all. I do not let anything get in the way of my sports viewing. I will not let anybody take that away from me because I love it so much, and I highly recommend everybody doing it. Because I'll tell you what, it was a wonderful way to spend last night on Tuesday watching college basketball in the NBA, other than watching politics that were on television. I feel a lot better this morning.
Yeah, amen. A few more questions for you. So we got to talk about the MVP race. Brian, I'm going to start with you. I talked about how I thought with spending my money kind of wisely, putting a little bit of money on Ja Morant, and he obviously just set the Grizzlies record for points in a game. He had 52 points the other night, and that was right after, I think, scoring like 48 points like a couple nights before. But he's climbing up the ladder. Now it's plus 1,600 according to FanDuel, and he is easily, I think right now, probably the most exciting player to watch in the NBA. The guy looks like he's jumping off a trampoline every single time he goes up for a dunk, goes up for a block. The guy is catching passes out of midair at buzzer beaters. The guy's posterizing people. He's doing everything we kind of remember D Rose doing in his MVP season, and maybe even just a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, and crazy enough to say, I even believe Ja Morant is more athletic than Derrick Rose was. I mean, the float he has in the air is insane. Yeah, when it comes to MVP race, Ja could do it. And he actually has a really interesting window right now. It would be really hard for the Memphis Grizzlies to overtake not just the Warriors, but the Phoenix Suns for the number 1 seed. But I really think that might be his only route to actually bringing home MVP this year. Is if, Phoenix with the Chris Paul problems and then Golden State going through their own injury concerns, if Memphis were to somehow sneak into that number one spot, that is when Ja Morant is, people probably say, hey, let's award him with the MVP. However, what Nikola Jokic is still doing, posting just the greatest plus minus in the history of the NBA, probably going to win him a second MVP award. Giannis is obviously a really good contender, but I actually think some people were saying James Harden coming to the Sixers could slow down Joel Embiid's MVP case. I actually think it's only going to accelerate it because the 76ers throughout this final stretch are going to be monsters. So good. And Joel Embiid is going to continue to post crazy numbers. My betting favorite right now, who I'm putting it on, is Joel Embiid to win the MVP.
Yeah, then my question for you, Joe, would be like, that's what I'm thinking is like, does James Harden, obviously a great piece and a superstar, adding him to the Sixers, is that going to hurt Joel Embiid's MVP case? Also, you got Nikola Jokic, whose team really doesn't have a very impressive record, and then you got the record of Ja Morant here. So who's going to end up being the MVP, and do these other factors hurt them?
I think it's Joel. I think with Harden being there, it actually helps them out quite a bit. I think they will be you got to remember, they'll be in the national spotlight over the next couple of weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And with the numbers that Embiid has been able to put up, I think he's gotten, I was writing this down, the free throw line like 40 times in those first two games.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So it's like, I think the floor just opens up for Joel. I don't think he's ever played with the talent like that. And I do think he's arguably the most dominant big man in the game. He's probably the most dominant big man in the game. So I would say he's the betting favorite. It does matter where you finish. You got to remember this. Like Jokic in Denver, I just don't think you're going to finish high enough for that to matter. I would say Ja is right there for sure. But as you were kind of alluding to, I think you do need to finish pretty high up in order for that to happen. I just think it's going to be Embiid because they're going to be in the spotlight. If you actually look at their schedule the next couple of weeks, they're going to have some major games. And if he's able to put up those big numbers that we've seen him put up all year long, I don't see any reason why he won't end up winning it.
Final question for you guys. We're going to talk a little WNBA. I know, kind of crazy, right? But I saw this news and I thought it was kind of comical. I don't know if you saw about the New York Liberty being fined $500,000 for chartering flights to away games during the second half of the WNBA season, and they also had other violations of league rules, including unsanctioned team trip to Napa, California. I don't know if they went to the French Laundry and got a nice little meal or not. I don't know what they did there, or if they were just wine tasting, but the way it was phrased was saying that this is even grounds for termination of a franchise. So are you saying termination of a franchise is valued at $500,000 in the WNBA? And I think that gets into like a little bit of the conversation of, if you've been wanting equal pay, just look at this situation here. If a franchise is valued at $500,000, it just doesn't hold water, Joe.
This is all stuff. This is somewhat new to me. I saw the articles about the chartered flights. I'm confused. What's the problem with that? So is the issue that everybody else doesn't get to have the chartered flights that we're saying?
Yeah, so the way the WNBA works is obviously there's not like so much money across the board because the least valuable franchise in the NBA is worth about $1.5 billion, and they're able to charter flights wherever. And you got about like a competitive, equality across the board. So they don't want teams in the WNBA to be chartering flights for one team and this other team just has to take commercial, and then they may have some competitive advantage because they're able to take these chartered flights just because one team has more money than the other.
I don't think it's a great look then for the WNBA. I think you should be able to do that if you want to do that. If an owner has the money and he wants to fly his players around, let the players fly around however they'd like. That confuses me. I don't have a problem saying I do not watch much WNBA. I do like some women's college basketball, but no, that's very confusing to me. I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, it seems silly to me just hearing this news come out here, because I know when we covered the Chicago Sky winning the WNBA championship, it's like these athletes are incredible and no one's going to say that they're not, but no one showed up to the parade. And unfortunately, you just don't have a lot of people that watch the WNBA. It's just really not that attractive. And then you see news like this where it's like, yeah, I'm with you. If you got money, just charter flights, win big ball games, make sure people like Diana Taurasi are, in the spotlight and people get to know her more. But I thought it was just kind of silly that this is how you value a franchise, is that much. But Joe, I'll give you the final word here. What is like something you're expecting the second half of the NBA season that might kind of surprise people, whether it's a finish at the top of the standings or the MVP race? Like, what do you think is going to be happening?
I don't think the Boston Celtics are, like, now people are talking about the Celtics as, if you look at numbers and like projections, as very highly to potentially make a far run in the Eastern Conference playoffs because of the way their defense has played over the last month, which has been absolutely fantastic, by the way. I do not think the Boston Celtics are a top-tier Eastern Conference team. I love Jaylen Brown. I love Jason Tatum. I love the way they play defensively. I just do not believe that they have enough offensive firepower to get it done. The Derek White addition, I think, was fantastic. I think the Celtics right now are very overrated when it comes to actual projections, even though they did beat Atlanta last night. So I would not get too excited about Boston. I still do not think that they are that top tier of the Eastern Conference. So everybody, the breaks.
And then final question for you here is, I mean, you got places like Turning Point USA here, and then Daily Wire. You guys just launched a sports podcast. You've been writing for them on the sports side of things for a little while now. What's the buzz around Daily Wire right now, or even just not even like just like conservative circles, but some of these places that are diving into sports and other aspects of culture a little bit more?
Look, man, it's very important to not just talk about politics all the time, in my opinion, as we have alluded to. Conservatives like sports too. It's not something that, in my opinion, ever really weigh. I understand that there are conservatives that do not like some of the politics that were going on in some of these leagues, but it's very difficult to be able to rip something away that, for me, that is so close to my heart. I will never be able to stop watching sports. And I do believe that if we can talk about sports, take the politics out of it, and just look at it from a lens of a sports fan, I think everybody will appreciate that. And I do believe, I mean, that's what I try to do on a daily basis, quite frankly, is let's talk about what's going on in sports. Let politics be politics, and let sports be sports. And I guarantee you will be a lot happier, because like I said, last night I watched college basketball and the NBA, and I'm in a great mood today.
Yeah, I'm in a great mood, and a lot of people are in great moods if you're a Horned Frogs fan. If you're a TCU fan, they've had a couple great games. It's been exciting. But, Joe, really appreciate – yeah, go for it.
And my Arizona Wildcats, I just want to give them a shout-out. There you go, baby. They're down.
That's going to hurt Brian Farnsworth, because I know he's an ASU guy. So we won't talk about the ASU basketball team. But, Joe, thanks so much. A.k.a. Ron Burgundy, thanks so much for joining us.
You got it, guys. Take care.
See you, Joe. But Brian, we're gonna bring you back in here. Joe's an awesome guy. I got connected with him when we were first launching the Breakaway podcast here, and it's so important that we have Daily Wire, us. I think there's a Daily Caller too. David Hookstead does a pretty good job covering sports. And we need to have those spaces where it's like, hey, you're going to hear the right side of the conversation with some things, because I know we're going to get into the MLB lockout in just a little bit, how you have people like Stephen A. We talk about him all the time. Like, for some reason, they need to turn things into race. Like, he's talking about the MLB lockout and then how this like affects the minority community. It's like, there's a specific agenda, and we got to fight against it. So I'm glad that Daily Wire is doing that. We actually are going to have a very special Sunday conversation with Jake Crane, one of the hosts of Crane and Company, their new sports podcast where they partner with Daily Wire. And I think it's going to be an awesome conversation to find out, how are they going to be talking about these things, because there might be some similarities to this show, but I think sometimes we're just unafraid. We're going for it. We're going to be unwoke, and we're going to tell you what the heck's going on and give you the right side of the conversation while still just giving you sports. All right, the NFL, QB carousel. Quarterbacks, it's all in place. Like Steelers need to fill a spot. Big Ben is gone. What are the Colts going to do? The Texans, hopefully they can shut down some massage parlors anywhere near the facility and they can protect their quarterbacks. Who knows where Deshaun Watson's going to go? Broncos, are they going to be in the Aaron Rodgers camp? Are they going to be able to get him? The Commanders, we're hearing a little rumblings that they're interested in Jimmy Garoppolo. Buccaneers, what are they going to do? So on and so forth. But I want to start with this. Colin Cowherd had some pretty strong words for Aaron Rodgers, and Cowherd was triggered yesterday. And he was talking about how Aaron Rodgers was a liar, and he tried even comparing Aaron Rodgers to former President Donald Trump. What the heck happened?
Look, very early on of me working with Charlie Kirk and with Turning Point, Charlie gave me some advice. He said, every day, at least once a day, consume some sort of media, article, blog, whatever, it doesn't matter, of something you're going to disagree with, because that's what continues to keep you informed on what the other side thinks. So that's why every once in a while I will throw on Colin Cowherd's The Herd, because I love to hear what bad sports takes sound like. So I was actually watching, I had it on while I was working on some other stuff yesterday, and all of a sudden he and Joy Taylor just start going off on Aaron Rodgers, and they're calling him a liar for what he had said about his vaccination status, which didn't lie. He said, I'm immunized, and the reporters didn't follow up with more questions.
Thank you. Bad. They didn't do their job.
Yeah.
You asked the follow-up question.
Mm-hmm.
What does immunized mean to you? Come on.
Exactly. And then also, Colin Cowherd for a while has had just an axe to grind against Aaron Rodgers. He has repeatedly, over the last year, made up numerous conspiracy theories about Aaron Rodgers planting false information to reporters in order to make the media look dumb. Now, is it possible? Sure. But Colin Cowherd is literally spewing conspiracy theories that he has made up in his own brain and then continuing to call himself America's honesty broker. Colin Cowherd is absolutely an unhinged lib that is, hosts one of the biggest sports shows. So that's why you hear this repeated nonsense that just comes out of his mouth. And clearly it's just hilarious, because we see him, he tries to lump Aaron Rodgers, Donald Trump, I'm assuredly Joe Rogan, all into these circles, and calls them liars just because they have different stances than the media and are constantly opposed to the media. So that's why it was just so funny to watch and just really understand of like, wait, yeah, there's a reason why, just like on a different level, I don't like Colin Cowherd, because, frankly, because he's a big time lib.
And I think too, it's just like, have your politics, like think whatever you're going to think.
Yeah.
But if you're going to make accusations and you're going to try to say that Aaron Rodgers has lied 3 times, I think they said that. So I don't know if they're trying to make some sort of Peter biblical reference here, and then it was before the the crow cooed or something. But if you make an accusation like this, I don't care what your politics are, you got to be able to back it up. And it didn't seem like they're able to back it up. You talk about these conspiracy theories. You talk about the immunized situation. And it seems like right now, Colin Cowherd, he's just protecting the media. And he hears and someone like Aaron Rodgers, chastise the media a little bit. Obviously, when you think about chastising the media, you're going to think of former President Donald Trump. Yeah. And I think it's such a just argument built on sand if you're going to bring that up, because he knows it's going to trigger people. You bring up anything about Donald Trump, people are going to be like, oh, God, I hate that guy. That was one of the worst people we've ever had in politics. And it's triggering for people, and it's emotional for people, and that's why it works. And it's funny, too, because people like Joe Rogan and Aaron Rodgers have created quite the friendship and quite the relationship, but they aren't conservative. They aren't like really far on the right side of the aisle at all.
Not at all.
And I think that's why they bring up these accusations, because they know it's like, we want you to disagree, and not just disagree, we want you to dislike and maybe even hate these people and not support these people. And the way we can do it is by lumping them into another camp, like a Trump supporter camp, and then that's how you're going to be effectively eliminating people from the conversation or eliminating fans.
Yeah, exactly. And I should say, to the audience, the lie that the most recent lie, I should say, that Colin Cowherd was accusing Aaron Rodgers of is yesterday. Diana Rossini, who is a great reporter, she's absolutely one of my favorites on the NFL. And both her and Ian Rappaport, they reported that Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are in discussions, in negotiations to try and make a short-term deal that will make Aaron Rodgers the highest paid quarterback in the league, and that Rodgers wants to be the highest paid quarterback in the league. The contract being at about $50 million a year. Rodgers then responded to it and said that this was categorically false, categorically untrue is what he said. And so that's where Cowherd is saying, look, I believe both these reporters, so Rodgers must be a liar. And that's where it's like, once again, like, it's just crazy talk. Look, that's why I'm saying conspiracy theory, because literally Colin Cowherd, it's fine if you want to believe these reporters, because both of them are very good reporters. But they are they could be getting their information from a false source, from a bad source. It doesn't necessarily mean that Rodgers is a liar, and that's why it's just crazy. But that's what it kind of brings us back into the quarterback carousel. This morning, then it came out that Brian Gutekunst, the general manager of the Packers, he said that nobody is calling him to, try and make a trade for Aaron Rodgers. So either he could be lying, or everybody that, the Broncos, the Commanders, the, Buccaneers, everybody who might be interested in the Aaron Rodgers trade, they might be holding off and waiting to see what's the fallout here before they offer a bunch of, because what's believed to be the price is 3 first-round picks for Aaron Rodgers. So we'll have to see on that what happens with Rodgers.
Yeah, because he's at the NFL Combine. I know we were talking about how they tried to make it a bubble, and obviously you had a lot of agents and people on the player side that stood up and said, this ain't going to happen. We're not going to have a bubble. We don't need to get into that again. But I don't know how the Packers GM could say, oh, there's no trade offers, if there actually is, because I feel like Aaron Rodgers knows. Like, he's going to be in the loop with probably a lot of stuff, and he's going to tell them really what he wants. And he's going to be able to command the situation. So I can't imagine he would be able to get away with something like that. But they did say that they expect some sort of sense of direction from Aaron Rodgers before free agency starts on March 13th or March 16th, excuse me. It's going to be interesting to see, where he goes. I mean, maybe just sign like another 1-year deal, but you got to know, like, the salary cap hit. Not only on that, and then you got Devontae Adams you got to sign. You got a few other players that they want to get signed as well. So it's got to be one of those things where you might have to do a Tom Brady, where it's like, all right, I'll take a little pay cut here so we can bring Devontae back, so we can have a few of these other little pieces, and hopefully spend some money on special teams so we don't blow it in the playoffs. Their special teams was garbage. They were so bad. But there's a lot of other players that need to get signed. But
yeah. Well, John, I'm glad you brought up.
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Tom Brady, because I was looking into this yesterday. Do you know the last year? Obviously, we just had Tom Brady retire in 2022. Do you know the last year that Tom Brady was the highest paid quarterback in the NFL?
Never.
Take a guess. Was it? No. There was one time, 1 year.
What? It was 2014?
One would think 2006. 2006 was the last time that Tom Brady was the highest paid quarterback in the league. There's a reason why he won so many championships. He wasn't just the greatest. He routinely, and it's not to say he didn't make a lot of money. Because he played so long, he is actually the player that has made more money in the NFL than any other. He'll be passed up really soon with these crazy new contracts. But no, Tom Brady routinely took lower than market value in order to, exactly like you said, bring in other pieces and win. Look, if Rodgers wants to get paid, go get paid. Get that $50 million a year. That is awesome money. But if you want to win a championship, dude, take a lower salary.
Dude, he doesn't want to get paid. He wants a Lombardi trophy. He's gotten MVP trophies 2 years in a row. He wants to win. This is about legacy. Like we were just talking about LeBron's legacy with Joe Morgan, the sports reporter from Daily Wire. This is about legacy for these guys. Aaron Rodgers wants to be remembered as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and his legacy, he's just going down. He's going down the ladder. He really is. With some of these playoff exits, he wants to win, and he's going to do anything he can to win, especially now. I think he's a dangerous man right now. His Shailene Woodley is gone. He's reflecting on life right now. He had a 12-day cleanse. Who the hell knows what kind of metaverse he was in for about 2 weeks. He wants to win. He wants to finish his career well, and he wants to finish it with another Lombardi trophy. And he's a bad man that wants to win MVPs, wants to win a championship, and will do anything to do it.
Man, yeah, I really, really hope he does the smart thing for the sake of football. If he chooses the money, all the power to him. But I really hope he does the smart thing. And you were kind of alluding to it earlier. There are a lot of teams that are currently on the quarterback carousel. By what I was just kind of putting together and thinking about 11-ish teams there is a serious question about what they are going to do at quarterback this upcoming season. That's a third of the league. A third of the league doesn't know. And what makes it worse, I'm sure we'll get into this as we get closer to the draft, is there is not a Trevor Lawrence in this year's draft. I mean, some have made arguments that no quarterbacks deserve to be picked in the first round. I think Kenny Pickett does, but this is not a great, rookie quarterback class. So you're going to see a lot of really retreads, which brings me to my favorite tweet from yesterday. Matt Miller, who, he's meh, but Matt Miller, who used to be with Bleacher Report, he tweeted out, I've talked to more NFL teams this week about Mitchell Trubisky than the 2022 quarterback class. We are going to see Mitchell Trubisky, the starter, this year again. It's just where is he going to be? That's crazy.
Well, because he was so used to being a starter. Obviously, he got picked high in the draft. He got picked before a lot of people thought he should, and he was with the Bears before Mahomes, and then obviously hindsight's 2020, and there's a lot of people that love to say oh yeah, well you should have known how good Patrick Mahomes was. Yes, I think there was a few people. You could see maybe some upside here and there. It's easy to say now. But he's been used to being a starting quarterback. He was just the backup quarterback for Josh Allen. And he got one game that he played in with the Bills last year. He had a pretty good little preseason game against the Bears. But you didn't really get to see a lot of Mitchell Trubisky. But it seems like the Bills were talking pretty highly of him. But it does say a lot more about the quarterbacks in this draft class than it does about Mitchell Trubisky being able to be a quality starting NFL quarterback. And also, for everybody out there, just wait till Mitchell Trubisky gets signed somewhere, and you're going to see all the people lose their mind and be like, I can't believe Colin Kaepernick didn't get this job. You're going to have there's going to be so many crazy people that go out and say that stuff because they can't let it go. But this draft class, it's tough. It is really tough, and that's why this free agency during the offseason, it's going to be bonkers. And that's why you have people like Kyler Murray that I think he sees his window. He sees his window with his agent here. And the one thing I don't understand is people that didn't see this. His agent came out with a basically co-signed letter that said, actions speak much louder than words. Kyler Murray wants to stay with the Arizona Cardinals. He is committed to winning a championship with them, and it said desperately wants to win a Super Bowl. That was the exact words. But this is odd to me that you have the leader of your team that is airing his grievances out online. He's deleting pictures from his Instagram. He sounds like he's being just unbelievably dramatic, like it's some sort of high school relationship. You're looking on the screen right now for everybody watching. You got that letter right there, and it talks about those things, that those actions speak louder than words. He wants to be here. What are you going to do? And this is a little different tactic because usually the Cardinals general manager, Steve Keim, has basically sworn against, and you know this well, negotiating publicly. And then now this has turned into a public negotiation. I think Kyler's and his agent are really trying to get people on his side and trying to make the Cardinals look like, are you really going to let go of this guy? Are you really not going to spend the money you feel like this top pick deserves? It just seems odd to me that these grievances would be aired publicly. It seems kind of petty to me.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's Cliff Kingsbury said yesterday at the Combine, he said, look, it's a business. I view all of this as a business move. And so, there's different ways people like to negotiate. Kyler Murray, he is an undersized quarterback, even though he's very, very good. So maybe they're just trying to get the long-term money right now. Frankly, for anybody, and I am a Cardinals fan. It's my team. So what I will say is, don't overthink it. Kyler Murray is a top 10 quarterback in the league, and this is a quarterback league. You either have one or you don't. So look, just pay the man. However, this does raise problems because also what I should say is, because I don't think there's a trade out there that you could make of moving Kyler Murray and bringing in another superstar quarterback that makes sense for you and your team.
Too, Brian, I'm gonna cut you off here because I think we got some breaking news. If guys in the back can tell me when this happened, when this was posted, when they're talking about an agreement. So about 30 minutes ago, get this, Brian, I need to get your take. The Cardinals posted, we've reached agreements on contract extensions with GM Steve Keim and head coach Cliff Kingsbury. We're showing that on the screen right now. Each is now under contract with the team through the 2027 season. If that doesn't piss Kyler Murray off, I don't know what will, because what has Cliff Kingsbury done for you? What did he do for Texas Tech? He starts well. He gets you excited, doesn't know how to adapt, blows it in the second half of the season, second half of games. When you need him to do well, he doesn't do it. And then now it sounds like he's their top priority, and Kyler Murray is just off to the wayside. They've staked their claim. They have said, we are Team Cliff, and we are not Team Kyler. That's what I see.
See, I don't know. I actually think this bodes well for Kyler. This says that the Cardinals ownership is totally happy with the status quo where things are at right now, and that does include Kyler Murray. This is a monumental mistake, and here's why. So John Gambadoro of Arizona Sports Talk 98.7, a very, very good reporter. He has broken national news before. He actually tweeted out yesterday saying that, hey, what I'm hearing is Keim and Cliff Kingsbury are working on extensions. So he knew that this was going to happen yesterday. It just wasn't official. Look, Steve Keim is very good at trading. He has made some great value trades. However, I will continue to say this. I believe Steve Keim is the worst drafting general manager in football. The guy doesn't know how to draft. He makes absolutely boneheaded moves time and time again.
Raiders have been pretty bad too.
Raiders have been bad, but this is why it's crazy. They've been better. Steve Keim has been the general manager of the Arizona Cardinals since 2013. During that time, the only first-round draft pick that he has had that has had any sort of actual success with the Arizona Cardinals is Kyler Murray, and you get no kudos for that because he was the first overall pick. You don't get a pat on the back for not messing up the first overall pick. He has repeatedly picked off-ball linebackers. Look, the last two first-round draft picks of the Arizona Cardinals, Isaiah Simmons, who is a freak, he should be good, but he is oddly not a full-time player. And then also last year, player at the exact same position, off-ball linebacker, Zaven Collins, who barely played this season. The guy doesn't know how to build through the draft. The picks are, another time we will go through it. I'm just obviously heated because just seeing this news, he's a bad drafter. I will, for all the Breakaway people, if anybody doubts me, at a future episode, I will give you a full breakdown of how poorly the man has drafted during his 9 seasons.
We need that
as the
full
Cardinals
breakdown.
General manager. Oh yeah,
we need Breakaway Arizona Cardinals fans here. Brian will give you the breakdown. He will go off, and I knew that would get you heated. Because
oh my gosh,
me, I knew that's what it was coming down to. It's like Cliff has not been your guy. Like, how many chances is he gonna get? Because for me, I figured that nothing would really get done, and let's figure out this next season. And then, if he's not getting it done halfway through, get out of here. I just
they both had 1 year left on their contract. Why extend them?
That's exactly what I'm thinking. It's like, why is he getting a long leash now? I don't feel like he deserves it.
Team has collapsed in back-to-back seasons. In back-to-back seasons now, they have been doing well in the first half of the season and then completely collapsed in the second half. That is coaching. That is not player related. It's because of course it's player related, but what I mean is it's the coaches cannot consistently scheme and develop the players throughout the season to have success as it gets later on. That's on Cliff.
And then the final thing we'll say about the NFL is we were talking about the draft a little bit. Is Jags GM Trent Baalke is saying that we're always open for business when it comes to that first overall pick. If that's not another example of how crappy they think this draft is, because they already got their quarterback. There's a few good interior D linemen in there. Obviously, you can bolster your offensive line and stuff, but there isn't a ton of really desirable talent that you'd have to get. So I think they're open to it. Obviously, they can use it for their advantage, but This is an odd draft, but I'm kind of excited about it because there's going to be a lot of unknowns. There's going to be a lot of not very big names, and they could have some pretty good careers. It's just not a sexy draft whatsoever.
No, that's why it's really unfortunate for the Jaguars to have the first overall pick this year, because there's not a star quarterback at the top where they could make a huge trade package and move down, because that's what they would want to do. The problem is there's nobody that somebody else wants to trade up to number 1 for. And this is how the first round is going to go. I've been studying these players a ton over the last couple months. In the top 10, you're going to see multiple 2 to 3 pass rushers go, and probably 3 offensive tackles. So the top 10 is going to be dominated by the trenches. Then as you get to 10 through the end of the first round, I bet we will see 5 wide receivers come off the board. This is what it is good for. If you need a wide receiver or a cornerback, there are very good wide receivers and corners as first round talents for this year. That's what, if that's what your team needs, that's what you're really hoping to get, because you're going to have, there's some really, really guys, like wide receiver wise, I think there's some superstars in this class.
Yeah, and it's going to be exciting. I mean, obviously Aiden Hutchinson is just like the big name. That's I mean, he's going to go quick, but there's going to be a lot of teams that need to make sure they bolster their defensive line. Obviously, Bengals, you know who they're looking for. They need to get an offensive lineman. But, all right, this is the point of the show where I love baseball. I know there's a lot of people out there that think it's so damn boring and they don't care. I care a lot about baseball. It used to be known as America's pastime. You had some really exciting players. It was fun to go to the ball game, get a hot dog, get a beer, hang out. You knew the players. Obviously, the steroid era just didn't. It was exciting, and then now it's kind of hurt the game a little bit. Manfred's jumped in. He allowed the Astros to hold on to their World Series trophy. He moved the MLB All-Star game because of politics, and now the players feel like they've been screwed over for years. They signed a deal back, I think, in it was like 2016 or something. I think that was the last collective bargaining agreement. And obviously you got Tony Clark that's representing the players, the MLB Players Association, that union, and he wants to come back to the table because he said the last 4 years, the owners, you guys have made profits. While the minor league baseball, we've gotten rid of teams. There's no real guarantee for some of these players, and it's really tough to make your way up to the big leagues. And player salaries have gone down. Obviously, you got massive contracts. You're going to hear about the people like Mookie Betts and everything. But it seems like they feel like they've been bamboozled a little bit and that the owners just don't even want to listen. So they said they wanted to meet. And it took 3 months for the owners to respond and say, all right, fine, let's meet. And then they got to the midnight hour. It's like, all right, on this final day of our soft deadline, let's try to figure this out. And they met for, I think it was reportedly almost like 16 hours that day.
It was forever.
It took forever. And I know I was watching ESPN that day, and I just wanted to hear the reports because I was watching Scott Van Pelt's show, and it was like, we're literally late at night after I just watched an NBA game, and we're still talking about the lockout negotiations. But this is the first time in 27 years that the baseball is losing regular season games because of a stoppage. 27 years. And I mean, it's absolutely asinine to me, because we heard that there's reports that the first 2 series of the season are not going to happen. And this is not just about players feeling like they've been bamboozled. Think about all the people that are associated with spring training. Think about all the game day and seasonal employees at these ballparks, whether it's spring training or the major league ballpark. This is hurting people, but I want to get your response, Brian, and then I'm actually going to tell you guys a little bit more about some of the reports and some things I'm hearing behind the scenes from some people that help run spring training facilities out here.
Yeah, frankly, I have a little bit of a different take than most of your sports fans, commenters, whatever you want to call it, because I actually have very little pity for very little pity for the owners and some pity for the players. Look, for the players, it's going to be awful. They are going to lose as collectively every day that the MLB from opening day onward, that they do not play, it is estimated that an average of $20 million a day in salary doesn't get paid out. Mm-hmm. Now, look, overpaid, whatever, that's not necessarily my concern. My concern is what you alluded to, the cities that have invested in these teams. I am deeply, deeply opposed to any private-public partnerships where taxpayer money goes to building facilities. I hate it. I think billionaires should build their own freaking stadiums and not put the burden on taxpayers. The city of Glendale, who hosts a lot of spring training, they reportedly will lose, if no spring training happens, they will lose over $600 million. The reason why that matters is because they have invested hundreds of millions of dollars into building up these spring training facilities.
Yeah, so we're showing on the screen right now, Brian, too, is like everybody watching right now, whether you're watching live or you're watching a little bit later. Mm-hmm. Here's some of the spring training facilities that are around here. Obviously, you got the Giants in Scottsdale. You got like literally right down the street from here at TPUSA HQ, you got the Angels facility, and then you got Sloan Park. That's one of the nicest ballparks out here, and you got Mesa, where the A's are, Hohokam. There's a lot of teams out here, and people are getting affected. Keep going.
Absolutely. No. So small businesses are going to be hurt, especially because they have built so much of their business around knowing, hey, in March, February, March time from spring training, we will make a lot of the money that we then, pay our business taxes with. So they're getting screwed because billionaires and players are heckling, or haggling over the contracts of stuff. And the reason why it upsets me is because they have no protection. They have no guarantee of these, deals that are being made. They just get screwed, even though they've been paying for these stadiums that these players and owners do their sport in. Like, that's why I think it's disgusting.
And then also, too, I've been reading up about this quite a bit, just getting a bunch of different takes from people that have been covering baseball for a long time. And it seems like this is just a PR stunt from the owners and the commissioner himself, Commissioner Manfred, trying to say that they were so close to a deal and that, we're finally coming together and figuring this out, a little kumbaya. I think it's all PR nonsense. And it seems similar to what Gary Bettman did, the commissioner for the NHL, in 2005. Try and say, like, oh, yeah, like, we're coming together. We're really figuring this out. No, you're not. Clearly, you're not. If you're going to wait till the last hour here and then have some sort of last-ditch effort, because Max Scherzer isn't a professional negotiator. A lot of these guys, these owners and commissioners and the people in their camp are. And that's why it's the players have put themselves between a rock and a hard place. And I think you have people like Anthony Rizzo that are saying, like, I'm so sorry to the fans. I'm sorry to some of the players. But, hey, future players, younger players, we are doing it for you guys. We don't want to expand the playoffs. We want these teams to stop tanking. We want teams to start actually making sure that we're hitting our threshold when it comes to these incentives. Because I remember Coco Crisp's situation with the A's. Like, obviously, the A's are a different situation than you got the Dodgers or any of these other big franchises like the Yankees.
Absolutely.
But they're going to bench them for a little while, and then they don't want to pay out some of this money here. It's crazy because, obviously, we're talking about people that make hundreds of millions of dollars on both sides. But still, you got to know your value. And anybody that's like, obviously it's tough for someone that's working minimum wage or someone that's a seasonal worker and getting paid minimum wage at these spring training facilities or these major league ballparks. But these guys have to know their value. And if the players continue to just get crapped on like this, it's going to hurt them and it's going to hurt future generations. And I think that's why they feel like they need to do this now. But I was talking to a few different people that work at spring training facilities out here in Phoenix, Arizona. Obviously, you got the Grapefruit League that's out in Florida as well. But some of the things he was saying was, this is 3 years of absolute craziness. Yep. You've had to shuffle around, try to figure out, like, okay, I've trained these young employees up, maybe a lot of college students or some people that are ticket takers or some people that are ushers, and then we're just constantly in this stalling pattern and this hold, and then, okay, I'll let you know when spring training is probably going to start or when the regular season is going to start. I don't really know yet. A lot of people really, really need these jobs, and it's hurting them. And then you got, the major thing is people are affected. I mean, they've lost like 80% of their business, during COVID. And like I said, too, thing that he wanted me to mention and a few other people was, jobs are minimum wage. They're seasonal. People rely on this window of time to make ends meet. There's hundreds of employees per game when we're talking about operations, ticket takers, ushers. Sponsors do know. I had questions about that. Like, well, what are sponsors saying? Like, they had a little understanding of what they were getting into, but maybe that hurts them later on. Whether you're a spring training facility or you're a major league ballpark, you have sponsors, and they want to be on the broadcast. They want to be seen at games, and this is hurting them. And also, too, people spend a good amount of money on traveling out to Phoenix, out to Florida, out to different ballparks. Are they going to be able to get their money back? Is that stuff refundable? Like, what are they going to do? Like, and then especially when you're saying the economic impact on a place like Florida and Arizona. They rely on this. And then now it's 3 years in a row that they're going to have to deal with that. And nobody can rely on anything. And the fact that we're finally getting out of COVID, that has just absolutely decimated the industry and the game. Now we have a bargaining agreement that can't even get figured out. And the worst part is the only thing people are talking about with baseball is whether you agree that one side is greedy and the other side isn't, or these are just a bunch of millionaires just trying to make more money, that you're forgetting about some of these incredible players. You're forgetting about the game in general, and that's why the game's dying. And you know who's killing it? Rob Manfred.
Oh, yeah. Well, and like, of course, a lot of the, stars we know, they're millionaires making tons and tons of money. But what really does suck for the minor league players, dude, those guys are making dirt. Like, they are doing everything they can to try and, get that shot to fulfill their dream and play Major League Baseball. But, dude, those guys already make like nothing. And that's where that's why I will ultimately side with the players, because part of the negotiations they're trying to do is get those minor league players more money and paid a little better, because, I mean, goodness gracious, those guys do not make a lot of money. So that's why Manfred's a joke.
And then also, too, it's just teams need to evaluate talent. You got to know, too, it's not like, they just flip a switch, they're able to figure out something, and then you just play ball. There's so many free agents that still need to get signed. You got to figure out how they fit in with the team. You got to evaluate talent during some sort of abbreviated spring training, because there's a lot of guys that make the ball club. Like, you see how many transactions happen in Major League Baseball? Normally we have 162 games. That's why no league focuses on their minor league more than Major League Baseball. You need to build that up and know who's like, what's the next pitcher up? What's the next utility player? And then who knows what's going to happen with the DH? That changes up baseball a little bit too. Like, they need time. They need time to evaluate these things and build out their team. And just who the hell knows what's going to happen? And it's an absolute debacle. It's insane. And honestly, I think if they did anything negotiating-wise, I think they should dissolve the Houston Astros franchise, and that's something we can all agree on. But it's crazy to me. I know I'm hearing reports that, I know Mad Dog Russo, he's always on First Take with Stephen A. Smith. He covers baseball quite a bit. You have people like Buster Olney. You got people like Jeff Passan. And they are not optimistic. You're even hearing reports that some of them are saying, we might not even see baseball until May. If that. Regular season was supposed to start at the end of this month. They've already canceled the first 2 weeks of the season. It's an absolute shame. And now baseball is what? Like probably the fourth most popular sport in America. It sucks. And also you got to know that this is a worldwide sport. You have players like Shohei Ohtani. You've had the Ichiro Suzukis. You've had a lot of players that have been from overseas, and there's an attractiveness to Major League Baseball, and they're absolutely killing themselves. It's insanity to me.
It's bad. No, there's no other way to put it. This is going to be, if things don't get resolved quickly, this is going to be one of the blackest years, darkest years in the history of baseball.
Final thing I'll say is, like, obviously, we talk about Stephen A. Smith a good amount. And for some reason, he had to. He's the main.
Can't help ourselves.
He's the main woke guy at ESPN. And at the end of their conversation this morning on First Take, he was like, "You know what? This really hurts is the minority community. You think about something like Jackie Robinson Day, where it means a lot to them. It's like, yes, Jackie Robinson Day means a lot for sports in general. It's an incredible day. Everybody wears 42, and he's trying to spin this into like another just woke agenda." Saying, this really just hurts the minority community. I didn't hear you say anything about the All-Star game getting moved and how that hurt the minority community of Atlanta.
Yep.
Stephen A., take a hike, bro. All right, we're going to wrap up with this, everybody. Also, too, if you're not following us on Instagram at all, at TPUSA Breakaway. Also, we always have great Sunday conversations. Larry Lage works for the Associated Press. He went to the Beijing Olympics. A lot of people like me didn't think we needed to be there, but if we're going to be there, you need good journalists like Larry Lage that cover the action. It's an awesome conversation, given the inside look of what it was like at the Olympics. But our world is crazy, and then sometimes you have aspects of politics that play into sports. We talk about that all the time. So obviously Russia invaded Ukraine, and you have a lot of different Russian athletes that were expected to speak out, as well as different politicians. What's going to be done? And I feel like this is one of those situations where politics and sports can intertwine in a way that can actually make a difference that isn't some like just crazy agenda, at least in my opinion. I know this is something that we posted on our Instagram, is you had a Russian tennis player, Andrei Rublev. He actually wrote "No war, please" after winning a match on the camera. You see a lot of players do that. They sign it after they win a match. You're also seeing former heavyweight world champion boxers Vitaly and Vladimir Klitschko. Klitschko? I'm butchering that for sure. I would never say that to his face because that guy would would probably kill me. They said they plan to help Ukrainians. You also have the son of John Stockton and other NBA players that fled Ukraine. You have just different things like FIFA saying that we're not going to have the World Cup until further notice in Russia. If you're looking at the screen right now, we're showing Rublev. And
it's bigger than that. FIFA has announced that Russia will not be able to compete in the World Cup. That is one of those things that doesn't happen very often. I can think of South Africa was excluded during apartheid, and there's probably a couple other instances. But yeah, no, indefinitely, both FIFA and UEFA, the European Football Union, whatever they're called, both of them have said indefinitely until further notice, Russia will no longer compete in any of our tournaments. That is, I mean, look, it's easy to forget because we're in America and soccer is like third, fourth, fifth most popular. Soccer is the world of Europe. They love it there. So that, I mean,
yeah, it's the most popular
really
sport. Like, if we talk about most popular sport worldwide, soccer is. I mean,
it's soccer.
I think soccer's trash, but in general, it is popular. Like I will always give that. But it's.
I love the World Cup though.
World Cup is always that's always a lot of fun. I do enjoy that. I do enjoy the Olympics. So also Formula One's the Russian Grand Prix was scheduled for September 25th. That's canceled as well. And then there's a good amount of Russian hockey players. And I know someone that's been friendly with Vladimir Putin is Alex Ovechkin, the captain of the Washington Capitals. Obviously the guy that partied harder with the Stanley Cup than anybody we've probably ever seen in our entire life. But it was odd that he got asked a few days ago, I think it was late last week maybe, about the situation. And it was after a game, and it seemed like he somewhat like filibustered for almost like 3 minutes before he said, "No war, please." And it seemed odd to me that I'm not trying to look into this and saying that, he obviously did say, like, I don't want to see bloodshed. I don't want to see, that whatsoever. But it seems like he's a little bit sympathetic to Russia. And who knows what kind of political circles that Alex Ovechkin is involved in. But for him to wait that long to say, you know what, I think the solution is please, like, just give us some sort of peace and please stop the war. It just seems like it took a little too long. And that's when you have Hall of Famers that are trying to say, I'm going to try to find this guy's name. I know I don't have it off the top of my head, but he was trying to say that Russian hockey players should be excluded from the NHL during the time being, and it didn't really make sense to me. I'm gonna try to look this up here, but that's like some of the take here is like, all right, Alex Ovechkin, what do you have to say? It sounds like you're gonna hold some weight because you're well liked in Russia. You're also a big time superstar here in the NHL and in American sports. Tell us what you think about what's going on. And it seemed way too long for him to say no war, please.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with just a blanket ban of hey, all these Russian players who are over here in America playing, they can't play, because that's like, the child paying for the sins of the father. It just doesn't make sense. I agree with like FIFA banning the country of Russia because it's something you do as a country, but on these individual players, like not allowing them to play, that's just that, to me, that feels absurd.
Yeah, because that is a Hall of Famer, Dominik Hasek. So he was a goalie. He's obviously, like I said, in the Hockey Hall of Fame. He was asking for NHL to suspend all Russian players, and I'm with you. So we actually have that on the screen for everybody watching. That was a report from the New York Post, and he had quite the Twitter thread about that as well. And I'm with you. I don't agree, because if you're going to pretend like these players being suspended is going to help like alleviate tension, even stop the war or something like that, or even saying that what he's basically saying is they're sympathetic to the invasion and the bombing of Ukrainians. And I just can't get on board with that. Also, too, this is from us from a Western worldview. Like I don't know. A lot of these players, they're from these areas. The tensions are high. So I understand that potentially this could be basically emotionally driven a little bit, asking for this. But there is a lot that's being done. Even CCM, I think, was saying that they are suspending marketing and promotion of Russian players. So CCM obviously is like a lot of the hockey sticks, the skates, and equipment for the NHL and anything hockey related in general. That's what they're saying. I'm going to pull up this report right here. That's what they're saying.
Go on.
Real quick, is the CCM Hockey said they're going to stop using Alex Ovechkin and other Russian NHL players in any global marketing initiative, the company said late on Monday, so just a few days ago, explaining that they made the decision following Russia's invasion of Ukraine last week. And then what they had to say, one more thing before I get your take on this, Brian, and then we start wrapping up the show, is the CCM Hockey chief executive said, although Mr. Ovechkin is not responsible for the Russian government's actions, kind of something we've been talking about here, we took the decision to not use him or any Russian player on any global CCM communication at this point.
No, dude, I strike some similarities between that and you've seen the liquor stores that are pulling Russian vodka off the shelves. Look, there are things that actually affect change, and there are things that don't. Pulling the Russian players from promotional videos and advertisements of hockey, that does nothing. You know what? Because you want to know what? Your car is still getting somewhat fueled in part by oil that is coming over from Russia. So yeah, not to go down a political well here. All I'm saying is that does nothing. It's like I said, it's like pulling Russian vodka off the shelves. It is a pointless virtue signaling move.
Final thing is, shocker, the International Olympic Committee is a joke. What they had to say is, the International Olympic Committee just gave the Winter Olympics to Beijing, where you've had our government officials and other people say there's a genocide over there. They didn't mince their words at all. Luckily, you had people like Press Secretary Jen Psaki say genocide. There was a diplomatic boycott. But they allowed China, who unleashed a virus on the entire world. They have genocide going on. There's human rights violations that are running rampant. I know we talked to Enes Kanter Freedom about that when I had a conversation with him. It's one of our best Sunday conversations we've had so far. They came out and said that they urged sports bodies to exclude Russian athletes and officials from international events. And I quote, the IOC said it needed to protect the integrity of global sports competitions and for the safety of all participants. You are a joke, IOC.
Mm-hmm.
If you really cared about human rights violations and really protecting people, you would not have gifted and blessed the CCP with the Winter Olympics. Don't act like you care about humanity now. This is all there's so much insane Ukrainian virtue signaling right now. We always have the Ukrainian people in our thoughts and prayers. No one likes seeing these bombings. No one likes seeing these photos and these videos of people getting hurt and getting put into these situations where they might need to take up arms and fight for their country. That stuff is so sad for us to see. Also, it should go to show that it's an absolute blessing and a privilege to be an American here. People wouldn't even think about attacking us like that on our soil. But our thoughts and prayers are always for the Ukrainian people. But all these sports leagues and organizations trying to pretend like they really care now, we have the receipts, people. This is a joke.
Yeah, no, exactly how you said, John. None of this of what we're saying is any sort of saying, of course, any support of Russia, and not condemning 100% totally everything going on. The point we're trying to make is that one, you can't be a hypocrite now and say you care, and two, there are things that matter in this Ukrainian-Russian situation, and there are things that don't. So don't just try and get your own, because honestly, it feels selfish. It feels like some things are almost doing it to try and jump on a bandwagon of social media praise for being against Russia and pro Ukraine. No, do things that matter to help the Ukrainian people and to assist, and some of it just feels pointless.
Yeah, and then we're always going to keep you updated on what's going on with that situation here on Breakaway. Obviously, it's been a great show. We really thank Brian for, I'm so excited. We're so excited that we had Joe Morgan here. Brian, you're able to take a little bit time off from your vacation out in Newport Beach. Use some sunblock. I usually use a lot myself. That's what I'm going to tell you out there. But this has been a great conversation. We're going to keep you updated on TPUSA Breakaway. That's at TPUSA Breakaway on Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe, review, give us 5 stars. Don't be like the trolls out there. There's a couple of them that gave us 1 stars. We got to find those people. But this has been amazing. We're on Apple, Spotify, always on YouTube and Rumble. And then also too, you got to remember, if you tune into TPUSA Live tomorrow, we are going to play that Sunday conversation with Larry Lage that I brought up earlier, Associated Press sports reporter that went to the Beijing Olympics. He gives you a great inside scoop about what was going on over there. And we're going to have an awesome Sunday conversation coming up here. We're talking to Crane and Co. Jake Crane, the main host there for the new sports podcast that they partnered with Daily Wire. Brian Farnsworth, enjoy the rest of your week there in California. Ladies and gentlemen, love you guys. And don't air your grievances and your relationship drama online like Kyler Murray. That's the last piece of advice I'll give for you. See you guys.